guys, we're here today recording a tier list video on every legendary Pokemon in the entire game, including for Legends Arceus. This will obviously contain spoilers. If you guys did enjoy, of course, leave a like below and subscribe for more content like this. Now, as I said, this will contain spoilers for Legends Arceus, and I'm going to go through the entries a bit quick because there are 115 legendary Pokemon, and I'm trying to not make this video over an hour. Because if I did like a minute per every Pokemon, it's going to take a while. So we'll go over this as quick as possible for things that I might need to. We'll explain a bit more, but with that said, let's start off with the Articunos. So this is, of course, yet again going to be a competitive ranking. So with Gala Articuno, I'm going to put this in the C tier. This actually has some okay viability and like doubles just because of stuff like competitive, of course, being not bad. But overall, it's not that good of a Pokemon. Articuno is going to be actually going into our F tier. We're going to add this below, and I'm going to add an S plus above Ubers because, again, we noticed last time at the very least that this seemed to be necessary. So we will add this to the F tier, and then we're going to add our S plus tier because, again, this feels like it's pretty necessary to already do this. And then it will also, if we need to, we'll make another tier above. But Articuno definitely goes to the F tier. It's one of the worst legendary Pokemon of all time, besides unevolved stuff. But even still, I think it treads that line pretty close. We'll make a tier as well at the very, very bottom for unevolved. Because at that point, it's just a whole different playing field. And like all the unevolved legendaries like Meltan are pretty garbage. So there we go. Now we have our tier list set. Gala Zapdos. Gala Zapdos is definitely an A tier Pokemon. It's a pretty cool doubles Pokemon. It's a really cool singles Pokemon as well. Fighting, flying is just a phenomenal typing, and Thunderous Kick lowering defense is also really incredible. Base 100 speed is great for Scarf too. So you have a lot of options with this. Funny enough, I've also seen some Moultries variants and Trick Room, so it has the speed of both worlds. Zapdos, this is an A tier unless you count BDSP as a metagame with standard Zapdos moves, because it cuts moves like Hurricane and Weather Ball, which make this Pokemon an absolute demon. I think this is probably going to be one of the Pokemon that borders closest to S tier, but it definitely will not reach that, in my opinion. It just more so, because the gap between A and S is just going to be that incredible. It definitely does tread the border the closest, though, in my opinion. So yeah. Next we have Gala Moltres. This is definitely a B tier. It's really strong in VGC, but it's kind of lackluster in singles. Albeit Dark Flying is still a cool typing, and not Oblivion Wing, Fire Wrath is still a really cool move, but sadly this just doesn't really have any reliable recovery, so it's definitely a B tier Pokemon in my opinion. We have Regular Moltres, which is another C tier Pokemon. Albeit Boots helped this one a lot, unlike Articuno, where I think it still is kind of shit with Boots. Moltres is a pretty okay Pokemon with Boots, however, it's just not that performing in doubles in my opinion, but it still is okay in singles. Fire Flying is a not bad typing with Flame Body. It has some usage there, but ultimately it still is kind of lackluster in my opinion. Next up, Mega Mewtwo's. Both the Mega Mewtwo's are S tier, and regular Mewtwo is also S tier. Realistically, these all kind of do the same job, just a bit different. Albeit Mewtwo X does physical attacking, but it's more just a physical breaker. Sometimes it runs recovery, and sometimes it runs other utility, but typically it's just a physical breaker. Mewtwo Y and Mewtwo just are both plot users. They're both offensive breakers, special, with Mewtwo more so having the ability to edge with a nerf, and Mewtwo Y having the speed advantage, albeit just no item at the same time. So they both have their uses, but ultimately these all kind of just do the same job, and they do it decently, but nothing insane. Mew is an easy A tier, really diverse, literally can do any moveset you want on the Pokemon, but ultimately it does still have base 100 all around, which while it is a great edge to it, it means it's just not mastering anything, which a lot of the S tiers can at least master something in that regard. So, easy A tier. And let's get into the next Pokemon. The next Pokemon is Ryko. Ryko is definitely a B tier. Having Scald is really cool for singles at the very least. You know, it's an electric type that can hit grounds, which is pretty difficult to do this generation. However, ultimately, Ryko is still a little bit lackluster. I mean, it really doesn't have electric as a pure typing isn't that great, but it has some cool coverage at least. Pressure is a decent ability, but it's nothing standout. Subtoxic's really cool on this, and the speed and special attack aren't bad, but it just kind of misses out a little bit of bulk at something like a Suicune has. Suicune, on the other hand, is literally just the inverse. It's really cool at pressure stalling teams, but this generation, it's been a bit less desirable, just because of how offensive a lot of Pokemon are and just general power creep. Still a cool Pokemon. It's really cool in doubles, I would say. It's probably funner, more usable in doubles, practically speaking, than it would be in singles, in my opinion. Entei, though, gets a C tier. Albeit this is another kind of cool Pokemon in doubles, but I think it's just a bit more lackluster in comparison to the two. It's definitely not as cool in singles anymore. It's definitely just a bit harder to justify unless you're playing a BDSP, where in that case, Spowline can just run Ban on you, and it's kind of a monster. Lugia, Lugia is definitely an S tier. I'm going to put Ho-Oh as the start of our S+, and I am going to make that band tier above. We're going to add a row above, and we're going to make this the band tier. Because these are the generally uncompetitive legendary Pokemon, so we're going to do that. But I think that we need Ho-Oh in a different category than these. Ho-Oh with regen and boots is honestly an absolute nightmare. It's really obnoxious, and especially the fact that it has such a good typing with fire and flying with no handicap there because of rocks. Really good Pokemon in my opinion. This is an easy S+ Uber. Next up we have Celebi. Celebi is definitely a B tier Uber, a B tier legend. Grass Psychic is a pretty lackluster typing, however Celebi has a lot of good usage just through general utility, general coverage. Tutors help this Pokemon a lot with stuff like Earth Power, so it has some use. Its coverage is pretty good, but it's just inferior to Mew in my opinion, and if it didn't have 100s all around, this would probably be a D tier Pokemon. Next up, we have Regirock. Regirock is a D tier Pokemon on the other hand. Rock typing, as pure rock, is okay, however I guess having Sturdy is not bad for specifically special attacks, because physical attacks you will never need to pop this. Clear Body is pretty cool as well for doubles. I know that some people ran some like Dynamax weakness policy sets. This Pokemon is just so bad in singles though that it kind of balances it out from like a B tier Pokemon because it doubles to like an F tier Pokemon because of singles. So we're gonna put it in D tier because I don't think it's gonna be as good in Series 12 anyway. So kind of scaling it down to the lower end of the in between there. Regice is another F tier ice. Albeit this is kind of a cool Pokemon to draft, but outside of like a counter team metagame, this really is just a bit lackluster because unlike Regigigas, unlike Regirock I should say, the rock typing is a lot better in VGC. Ice isn't just, it's just not doing that because your spread move of choice is, I think it's like Icy Wind, and then I believe Blizzard's also spread if I remember correctly, and even still it just has a lot of chance to miss. Icy Wind also has a little bit of a chance to miss, though it has a speed control to be fair. But Regis in general just doesn't have the same luxuries of being a nice physical check. Albeit it's a good special sponge, but there's a lot less really threatening special Pokemon this would want to be used for. Also, just in general, ice typing isn't that good, defensively speaking. So, yeah. Boots help us a little bit, but it's not the greatest in the world. Registeel is going to be a C tier, though. Clear Body on a Steel type is really nice. It's a bit more passive, sure. 75 versus 100's not as good, and 150 versus 200 the extreme defense isn't as good, but it's literally the middle ground option. Steel typing is amazing defensively in singles as well. Has some cool stuff like rocks, for example, so at least over Regice that's pretty good. Ultimately, though, this is definitely a C tier Pokemon. It's a bit too, it's similar to Mew where it's not doing anything masterfully, or at least the other Regis, while they're doing something masterfully, while they're shitting the bed in one area, they're doing something masterfully. But Registeel just doesn't really do either end to a perfection, so it's gonna be C tier. If this had Regirock stats and Regirock had the mixed stats, Regirock would probably be F and Registeel would probably be B, but sadly that's not the case. Mega Lottias is going to be S tier and Lottias is going to be B tier. Lottias is a pretty good Pokemon, albeit it just kind of crumbles a bit in comparison to a lot of our A tiers, and we'll see that shortly as we add in a lot more A tier legendary Pokemon. Mega Lottias, on the other hand, has a really, really solid bulk spread, though, and in my opinion, this Pokemon, especially as just a general draft Pokemon, is where it really stands out because it's really good in counter team formats to just try to outlast your opponents, and with stuff like Reflect type as well, it's just a really incredible bulky Pokemon. Lottias, on the other hand, has some really good uses defensively too, but it's just nowhere to the same degree because you lose out on a lot of bulk from not being the Mega Evolution. Because that's where most of Mega Lottias' stat boosts go to, its defenses. So yeah, it ultimately does lose out a bit there, but it is still not a bad Pokemon by any sense. Mega Latios, I'm going to put in the A tier as well as Latios. I think that while Mega Latios is a really obnoxious Pokemon, in comparison to a lot of the legendary Pokemon we're going to be adding up here, it's probably just going to be the peak of this A tier in my opinion. It's really good, but in comparison, like, it's just not as good in ladder as Mega Latios would be. And on top of that as well, Mega Latios just, it's a bit more of a, it has to run mixed offenses in my opinion, though, or should just help a bit. If you're trying to kill Pokemon like Heatran though, which you would need to do in ladder, this isn't going to do it as well without Earthquake. Latios, on the other hand, is really good as a specs user, especially with options like Mystical Fire and Oristria helping it out. It can actually get that sort of edge over steals like Heatran, at least to pressure them sufficiently, as well as stuff like Surf 2, for example, which, again, with specs, it can do that easier. On top of this as well, Trick Scarf is a really cool option on this. Live Orb with Calm Mind is a really cool option on this, just to get a bit more edge on the damage. Same as Soul Do sets as well, if you want to get the damage boost without doing damage to yourself, but that's more so for like when you're using this as a draft piece, I guess. Ultimately though, they're both kind of there for different reasons in my opinion, but they're both definitely A tiers because Mega Latios is just so much worse in comparison to the other actual Ubers. Primal Kyogre and regular Kyogre are both gonna be S pluses. They're both kind of filthy Pokemon, with Kyogre mostly getting the edge up there, just because it can run stuff like Scarf, which is incredible, and also gets that dominant of a Pokemon in VGC, whereas Primal Kyogre gets it just because of its natural bulk and the fact that it's permanent weather, and the only thing that can stop it is Rayquaza or just general Cloud9 Pokemon, and Primal Ground. That's really it. So, in general, these both are absolute behemoths because of their rain boost and the fact that water offensively is such a good typing. On to the next Pokemon we have, though, Primal Ground. Primal Ground gets an S+ tier, and Regular Ground gets an S tier. Regular Ground definitely has had some good use in Sun and Moon, and not in Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield meta, to be fair, because the Primals are not there. It's actually a really good Pokemon as a defensive ground type, and an offensive ground type as well. However, it's just not nearly in the same degree as Primal Ground, which is one of the best Pokemon just of all time. Primal Ground, on the other hand, has an immunity to water as long as the Primal Weather is up, and that takes it down to only having one weakness being ground types, which is really useful in my opinion. On top of that as well, Fire Ground is actually a pretty good offensive typing, especially when you throw that on with stuff like Rock Slide. This Pokemon is a pretty obnoxious Pokemon offensively speaking, and it has really good defensive merit too because of its natural bulk, and again, the immunity to water, making it weak to only one type. So Primal Ground is an easy S+ tier, Regular Ground is an easy S tier. Mega Ray is in the broken tier, this is why we made the tier, it's one of the two Pokemon for it, and Rayquaza is an S tier. Rayquaza definitely does pale in comparison a bit to Pokemon like Ho-Oh, Kyogre, Primal Kyogre, etc., but it's probably one of the better S tiers in my opinion. 95 speed with just 150 in both offenses is really damning, and it has some pretty good coverage to boot with stuff like Dragon Ascent, V-Create, it has stuff like, for example, Surf and Waterfall. Whereas Mega Ray just sort of needs to abuse the fuck out of everything, and because the Mega that can hold an item already makes it broken. Rachi is definitely an A tier Steel. It's just a really good Steel type. It has some good utility, but again, similar to Mew, it's just a jack of all trades, master of none. Deoxys attack. This definitely gets an S+. Deoxys defense. I'm actually putting defense and speed in the A tier. They're just a bit too underwhelming at this point in such an offensive metagame, but they're really good. Deoxys defense is a really good sponge. Actually, I'm going to put Deoxys Speed back in S tier because of Psycho Boost being a thing now because of BDSP. And I'm also going to put Deoxys Regular in S tier just because it's inferior in every way to Deoxys Attack. And also Deoxys Speed because Deoxys Speed at least is a fast hazard setter, and Deoxys Attack is just an obnoxious breaker. Deoxys Speed, Deoxys Normal is literally just the problem child of both. It's doing neither job to the degree it should be doing. And it's not even a master of all trades, or a jack of all trades I should say, because it's just not doing anything well. You may as well either go with the speed with Deoxys Speed or attack from Deoxys Attack. This Pokemon just kind of sucks. But it's up here just because it would be way too good in comparison to any of these. It just sucks in comparison to the S tier. Deoxys Defense though, it's down here just because again, Ubers is way too wall breaky right now for it. And in my opinion, it's a bit too passive to really shine outside of OU. And I feel like this actually could be a really justifiable Pokemon in the tier in my opinion. But Deoxys Defense is still a really good defensive sponge as a defensive psychic. Options like Taunt and the fact that it'll outpace a lot of other defensive walls with base 90 speed help it a lot in my opinion. But yeah, this is definitely an A tier Pokemon if I've ever seen one. Uxie. Uxie is going to be C tier. Mesprit is going to be C tier, and Azelf is going to be B tier. Now, I can't remember the Legends Arceus moves, but I do believe Mesprit got Recovery, which is why I'm actually putting it in the same tier as Uxie. I can't remember the full movesets. I think that Uxie got some stuff as well, but I can't remember the full things. I just remember that Mesprit got Psychic. I got Recover, which I think definitely helps out a lot, in my opinion, as making a viable Pokemon for this tier. Now, I'm not going to go through every single data mine move, to be fair, because that would take a while to like specifically check everything. But if we do double check, at the very least, Uxie does not seem to have gotten Recover, whereas Mesprit at the very least outright gets like the move Recover, and this is a level up thing for it, if I remember correctly. Yeah, this is an outright level up thing for it. So Mesprit gets it, Uxie does not. I think that helps the case at least a little bit here. But yeah, that's a really big one, to be fair. Most of these Pokemon would not have even been in Legends Arceus, and the ones that have didn't really get anything besides Mesprit. That was really a big buff there. Dialga is going to be an S tier, Palkia is going to be an S tier, and then we're going to also really quickly do the Primal Dialga and Palkia. Origin Dialga is going to be S tier, and Palkia is going to be S+. Same reasons I mentioned in the Dragon tier list. Palkia with the Origin form, it's still going to have the Lustrous Sword boost if that's a held item that's mandatory, and if not, it's even more broken. With also 120 speed, which is insane in this Pokemon in my opinion, with the 150 special attack. Primal Dialga and Regular Dialga, both are kind of a mixed bag. Both are pretty viable, whether you're going to use items or not. It just sort of depends on your personal preference at that point. And then Palkia is just inferior to Origin Palkia at this point. While you can do the Scarf and the Specs, taking a bit more in one direction, At this point, Origin Palkia is just such a good combination of both, with like the perfect stat line to boot. It really, there's no reason to use regular Palkia in my opinion, unless you specifically need the speed advantage from Scarf. Heatran is definitely an A tier. Fire Steel is such a good typing, and Flash Fire proves to be really good at countering itself. As long as you're switching it into stuff that's predicting the Flash Fire, and then you're making sure you're going to outpace Heatran, it's really good in that regard in my opinion. Regigigas is an easy F tier. I do not care that this has a niche with Wheezing and VGC. It's just that terrible of a Pokemon in singles, and even still, it's such a niche Pokemon because you need it with Wheezing and neutralizing gas in the front to actually pop. And because of that, its slow start turns don't start until Wheezing's gone, so you can't even just try and burn through them for 5 turns and keep Wheezing alive for 5 turns, and then have Regigigas be a behemoth after that. You just need to burn through them. So with that in mind, Regigigas is definitely an F tier Pokemon. We have Giratina up next. Both Giratinas definitely get the S tier. They're both pretty good, but they're both having their own usage. I think Giratina Origin's better in BDSP, as well as general DPP meta. We have regular Giratina, though, which is better in simply Sword and Shield, in my opinion. Albeit not a ton better, but it's still a little bit better. They're both kind of equal. They're both really good sponges. They're both really good offensively, but just Origin is slightly better at offensive, and regular is slightly better at defensive. So they're both kind of there. They just kind of exist in the tier, to be honest. Dragon Ghost is good typing. Crystalia is definitely a B tier Pokemon. That's mostly because of VGC. It's a really good Trick Room setter, but at the same time, though, it's a bit less good this generation, as well as the fact that it's a bit less good in singles this generation, just because of general power creep. Fire is an easy... I'm actually putting Fire in the unevolved tier. I don't care that it's not unevolved. It's going in the unevolved tier. It's just that bad. Manaphy is an easy A tier. I'm not going to put this in S, which, to be fair, if you play BDSP, you might think it maybe deserves an S. I think that, personally, just its counter team format perception, as well as just general presence in draft tier, keep it out of the S tier in my opinion, but it's still a really good Pokemon. Tailglow is still a really good form of sweeping, and it has options like skill swap to get around unaware Pokemon. However, I do think a Manaphy is just a bit of a Pokemon that has a bit of issues with 4 moveset syndrome, so we're going to put it in the A tier. Shaymin, we're going to put Shaymin really quickly in the B tier. It's just really good defensive grass. Better than Celebi, but it's not A tier worthy, because I want to move Darkrai and Shaymin Sky both in the S tier at the same time. Darkrai gets it because of its good speed and typing. Shaymin Sky gets it just because it's too good for A tier because of infinite flinching with the really fast speed and Air Slash Serene Grace, as well as the 80% chance Sped F drop with Serene Grace. However, it's probably one of, if not the worst Pokemon that's going to end up in S tier. I think there's maybe a couple Pokemon that give it a run for its money, but it is still pretty bad. Arceus forms, I want to put Arceus in S plus just as a Pokemon because it's any typing. However, at the same time, though, there are definitely a lot of forms that would end up in S. I think that its peak forms to put in S plus stuff, stuff like Arceus Normal, which is what the sprite is for, so we're going to tier it off of that, as well as stuff like Water, Fairy, Ground, Dark, Steel, stuff like that would all be an S plus in my opinion. But it's a really good Pokemon. The forms kind of hover, but I think the better forms definitely end up as the top of S plus, so I'm going to put it there. Victini. Victini is definitely an A tier Pokemon with boots. This is a really good Pokemon, as well as in National Dex is a really good Z Celebrate user, being able to catch some teams off guard because a lot of teams don't really prep for it in that Dex. However, it's definitely not in the S tier realm by any sense. It's definitely not good enough for that. Never will be, in my opinion. Cobalion gets a B tier, Terrakion gets a B tier, and Verzion gets a C tier. Terrakion and Cobalion are both really good Pokemon in VGC, however, they definitely crumble a little bit in singles. Cobalion more so than Terrakion, but Justified's pretty cool for both of them. I think that both have their uses. Cobalion's a decent UU Pokemon typically, Terrakion's a decent UU Pokemon typically, sometimes OU, but it's typically UU. Verzion's just kind of worse than both in my opinion. I don't think it's as good as a special attacker in my eyes, but it's not bad. Next up we have Tornadus. Tornadus is an easy A tier for Therian, and then Incarnate gets a B tier. B tier for Tornadus Incarnate is mostly because of how good it is in VGC. It's kind of shit in singles, but it's okay with Prankster Flying type. This is able to get some nice Tailwinds really easily. And Incarnate form, in Therian form, mostly benefits from how good it is in singles with regen. Albeit, it's not as good in VGC, but it's okay, I guess. It's still really fast flying type with Tailwind, but you're ultimately not taking advantage of regen, so why bother using it over Incarnate? I just think that it's so good in singles and so okay in VGC, whereas this one has so good in VGC, but to a lesser degree, and then it's very, very much less good in singles, probably like the CD realm. So we'll put him here. We'll put him here. Next is Reshiram. Reshiram is going to be in... They're both going to be in S tier for this. Unlike with the Dragon metagame, there's a lot of better Pokemon, so we're going to put Zekrom in the S tier this time around. It's still really good as a Dragon Dance user, it's still really good as an Uber, but it's just not as much of a shine here. And the Veshram similar. Fire Dragon, it's not as good in Ubers. It's still really good at clearing steals, but its fire is just so much less usable against a lot of the Dragon types. Boots is really cool on it, but again, takes out a lot of damage output this could otherwise have. Whereas Zekrom at the very least has a Dragon Dance, which while Veshram has it too, it benefits Zekrom a lot more for physical options because it's more of a primarily physical attacker. It's like when you had to run Specs on Kyurem Black in the past because it didn't have a good ice move. It could technically do it. It's probably the better option to do it for an ice attack, but it's not going to be as good as it could potentially be with a physical ice move. Next up we have Landers. Landers T gets an A tier. Landers, I am also putting the A tier. I know this is a really good Pokemon. It usually gets banned from Smogon, but ultimately it's just not as good in VGC, albeit it is still pretty good in VGC, but it's not as good in VGC as it is in Smogon. On the top of that, in Draft, usually I feel like it balances itself out, in my opinion, as a really top tier A Pokemon. So I feel like I'm going to put it here because it's also really shit in Ubers. So we're going to put it here. It's a really good breaker with Sheer Force, but ultimately, again, its speed as well as the fact that it really only has like rock. It has to run a mix set for a good rock attacks, and it doesn't really have a good flying attack. So we'll put it in A tier. Landers T is really just jack of all trades in OU, but it is master of a few. It's really one of the best defensive Pokemon in the tier, as well as a really good Scarfer. So we'll put it in here. A tier feels really fitting. It's also like one of the best Pokemon in VGC because of Intimidate, and the fact it's ground flying type, which is a really good type set. Kyurem Black and Kyurem White both get S tier. They're just really good dragons, similar note, pretty much same notes as these, but this doesn't have Dragon Dance. Well, actually, I think it does have Dragon Dance. I generally don't remember, to be honest. But it's still a really good Pokemon nonetheless. Well, actually, yeah, it would definitely have Dragon Dance. Even still, Kyurem Black is just a bit harder Pokemon to maneuver just because of the typing, but it's still really good. The speed kind of hurts these things being only 95. It kind of sucks with the fact that it is also weak to ice. Weak to rocks, I should say. It just means that they're on a bit more of a time crunch. They're forced to run boots, which to actually like be able to not take hazard damage, which does mean that they at the same time either need to take 25 from hazards, or well from rocks specifically, I should say, or they need to go for boots to go for any sort of actual presence, which means they need to go for Dragon Dance on Kyurem Black to actually get the offensive boost out there, or Kyurem White just giving up the special offense entirely. Kyurem, on the other hand, is a really good medicine both draft and in OU. This actually got banned in Sword and Shield metagame. However, just like last time, I think it's so much worse in the alternate forms that it can never be an S tier. Keldio, I'm going to put this in A tier. I'm not going to mark the alternate form because like it's the same Pokemon pretty much. A tier Keldio is a really good OU Pokemon in my opinion. Really good Scarfer too. Really typing. Really nice speed at 108. We'll put it in A tier. Meloetta, again, we're not going to tier this form separately because it's battle dependent, but Meloetta gets a C tier. It's kind of okay. Realistically, Psychic Normal's an okay typing. It's immune to Ghost at the very least, which is really nice. It's still weak to Dark though, which kind of sucks as a Psychic type at the very least. But hey, it's at least immune to one of its resistances, but it's also neutral to fighting, which is cool for the normal type aspect. But I feel like that both ends kind of just hurt a bit because Psychic ends up not being able to resist fighting at the very least. So that kind of sucks. And at the same time, the normal typing, I don't know, it just feels like it could be on a better Pokemon, I guess. Point is, Meloetta is definitely a C tier Pokemon. Relic gives us some nice niche to get the normal fighting typing off, and it's really fast, normal fighting type. But again, it still kind of needs to force out a mix set at that point, so not a huge fan. Genesect is an easy S tier. Download is really cool on it. It's a really good steel type. Bug Steel is really nice in general as an offensive typing. And with download and mixed options, you can really make either set work. But still, it's definitely an easy S tier because it's a bit too slow and it's a bit too weak overall to really do that, even with download. Veltal and Xerneas both get S+ for very different reasons. Veltal is an amazing sponge as well as amazing offensive Pokemon, especially with Dynamax. Oblivion Wing is just a really easy option to click for the max stream to get the speed boost. And Xerneas is the option for Geomance into max, which is incredible. Kind of hurts a bit from VGC to be fair for Xerneas' case because of how many steel types are running around, but it's still such a good Pokemon. This is an easy S tier in my opinion. Next up, we have Zydog. Zydog is another C tier Pokemon just like last time. Zygarde Complete is an S+, and Zygarde Regular is an A tier. Same reasons as last time. Arrows is really good. It's what keeps Zygarde out of D tier for the 10% form. It keeps this in A tier because of the fact that it's really hard to switch in on it. And Glare as well helps it a lot for defensive coil sets. And then Zygarde Complete is just an immense physical wall. You know, it's probably one of the best physical walls you could really get, in my opinion, just because of the obnoxious HP stat as well as the obnoxious Phys Def stat. Really cool coil user, really cool Dragon Dance user, really good Glare user. Honestly, it just needs like 4 moves usually. Sometimes you can throw on Rest just to BM teams and to PP stall them usually, which is really good in AG tiers. But ultimately though, in VGC, you don't really need it in my opinion. And it's really well paired actually with stuff like Finny to avoid burns. So yeah, easy S tier, easy S plus in my opinion. Alright, next up we're going to go into Mega Diancie. Mega Diancie is an easy A tier, with Mega Diancie being a C tier. Mega Diancie has a nice benefit of 110 speed and really good offenses in both departments, as well as getting a good physical option for, well, it has, let me phrase it, has good special options now for stuff like Mystical Fire, for Steel types, specifically stuff like Skarmory and Corviknight, which are immune to Earth Power before. Not only this, but it also gets options. I believe it got Play Off as a new move in Sword and Shield, if I remember correctly. The point is, though, is it has some good physical and special sets with Diamond Sword Play Off, or if it's going to go with Moonblast, Mystical Fire, and Power Gem, or it can go mixed because the offenses are just that good. Diancie is a really cool Trick Room Pokemon for the regular form, and in Sword and Shield specifically for the non-Nat Dex metagame, it's a pretty cool weakness policy Pokemon with Dynamax. Albeit, it still is dependent on playing in a Dynamax metagame, which is not typically allowed. But if you were to do that, it is still an option as Pokemon. And even still in just the non-VGC metagames, it's still a cool Pokemon in lower tiers just because of the typing and the bulk alone. Hoopa Unbound gets a B tier. It's kind of a lackluster just because of the 4-time weakness and the fact it's a bit slow. But it's still a really good Special Sponge in my opinion, so we'll give it B. Definitely not where it was back in Oras, but it just kind of power creep caught up to it, I guess. Hoopa Regular is going to be D tier. Hoopa Regular is just kind of a shit Pokemon, really weak to Dark and Ghost. And it's really slow as well. You kind of need to run this as a Scarfer or put it on Trick Room with the Specs or Life Orb. But the fact I think as well that both of its stabs both have really good immunities, and the fact it doesn't have good bulk or its coverage is kind of okay. Easy D tier. Volcanion's definitely a B tier. Typing is really cool. Water Absorb is really cool just to avoid Scald Burns, I guess. Just for passive damage. And Steam Eruption's a really cool move because it's just really high base power Scald. But ultimately, I feel like it's just kind of lackluster. The speed hurts it a bit. The fact you need boots to really help it have a defensive presence hurts it a bit. But it's still an okay Pokemon by all accounts, I guess. Titanol is definitely a D-tier Pokemon, albeit it's a really good one with the Violet, but it is still definitely a D-tier Pokemon nonetheless. Savali, because of the fact it's all types, again, gets D-tier, because with all types it's D-tier, with any individual type, though, it's an F-tier. So, just more so about the versatility there, I guess. Similar to the Arceus, goes down a tier because of the fact, well, it goes down a tier if you don't count the fluidity of types. All the Tapus besides Bulu, I'm putting in the A tier. Bulu gets a B tier. I think Bulu just in comparison is a bit lackluster to the Pokemon here, albeit it is still one of the best B tiers in my opinion. Grassy Surge still hits obnoxiously hard, but as we've seen in that Dex, as well as in just in general in Sword and Shield, it's just not keeping up with the metagame in comparison to stuff like Rillaboom, which is most times a better Grassy Surge user. Whereas with Coco, Lele, and Finny, these are the best of their surges. And on top of that as well, they both have, this is really good natural bulk, and these are both really good breakers in the tier. Coco also just has really good utility, and especially in a draft sense, this has really good weakness policy potential for stuff like sword power sets. So yeah, I think these in general all are really good A tier Tapus, whereas Bulu is definitely a B tier Tapu in my opinion. Cosmog's unevolved, Cosmoem's unevolved, Solgaleo gets S tier, and Lunala also gets S tier, albeit Lunala is probably going to be the best S tier that we get. Lunala just has power creep issues compared to stuff like Shadow Rider Calyrex, but it's still a really good option thanks to Shadow Shield. Solgaleo has a nice benefit of being unintimidatable, which is really good for VGC. However, again, it's just lackluster in comparison to a lot of the S pluses. That's really all there is to it. Dawnwings, on the other hand, gets another S tier, which also makes me want to move Lunala up to S plus, but I can't really do that just because of Shadow Calyrex. Shadow Calyrex. Anyway, Ultimate Necrozma as well as Duskmane Necrozma both get S pluses, albeit Ultra Necrozma only gets it because it could start as Duskmane, but because of the fact we're including Duskmane in this and it's not just off the Dragon type form alone, this definitely does get the S plus tier. Duskmane Necrozma though, one of the best steel types. It gets recovery and rocks, which is incredible. It's really hard find to get a steel type that actually gets both of those, which even Solgaleo doesn't get both of those. On top of that as well, it's a psychic type, so that means it's weakened, gets fighting weakness to just a neutral hit. And Prism Armor is really good defensively speaking. It helps take the weaknesses and make them do less damage to it. So yeah, whereas Ultra Necrozma gets Neuroforce, which is really cool. It helps, basically it's just an extra health boost. Regular Necrozma gets an A tier, it's just a weaker version of the Prisms, but to be fair, Dragonite helps a slot with the Fluidity sets. It's just a really good Pokemon. Magearna gets an S tier, really good typing with Fairy Steel, and the fact that it gets stuff like Soul Heart infinitely boosts its special attack, as well as long as Pokemon die, whether they're hazards or otherwise. Its ability is just a better Moxie, but for special attackers, so it's really incredible in my opinion, and the typing gives a lot of versatility to it. As far as Marshadow goes, this is an easy S plus Pokemon. The Ghost fighting typing is incredible, as well as the fact that it has obnoxious physical attack and speed. it's literally nearly impossible to actually switch into this Pokemon for a resisted hit. Though to be fair, Hisuian Zork is trying to give that thing a run for its money, but even still, it needs to run Scarf to actually get a hit off first, because you could just throw a Technician boosted Rock Tomb at it, and you're gonna nuke it. So yeah, Marshall is an easy S+. Nothing that really competes with this in my opinion, at least as far as offensive goes. Zera gets an A tier, really good singles Pokemon, especially in the draft metagame. Electric Happy is really cool, especially with that good of a speed stat. You can run either physical or special. It's just a really good utility Pokemon. Meltan's an easy unevolved. Melmetal Gmax, I'm going to put this, I guess, in A tier. Melmetal Gmax and Melmetal Regular, neither really that, like, they're not that broken. I think Melmetal is just a really good offensive Pokemon. And Gmax, even if this was a VGC Pokemon, it's basically just, Spite is the best way to put it. Which, while it's not bad, VGC is such a quick metagame, it's not going to matter too much. And you'd probably rather just get the defense boost from Melmetal with the Steel move anyway. So I'm going to put them both in A tier. We have Zacian Regular. Zacian Regular gets an S tier, purely just out of competition from the Zacian Crown, which is S+. While this is definitely a really good Pokemon, I think Zacian Crown, just having the Steel typing, just helps it infinitely more in my opinion. Just being a top tier Pokemon. Steel typing helps a lot against Pokemon like Xerneas, as well as just the fact that it's also immune to Dragons, and then able to, I guess, just have that really good defensive typing as well from Steel. Really obnoxious Pokemon. Zamazenta, Crown, and Regular are both going to be S's. They're both really good Pokemon, to be fair, and I know that Zamazenta Crown is a bit better now in VGC, albeit it's still not a standout, but it's better than it was, at least in VGC, to where it's an actually usable Pokemon as a restricted. But they're both kind of lackluster. I think Zamazenta has a bit more offensive presence because it's a bit faster and it can hold items, but Zamazenta Crown is a bit more of the defensive presence with this hyping at the very least, and Dauntless Shield, so really just depends on your preference there, in my opinion, but they're both just kind of existing. Next up, I just realized this list didn't include Ultra Beasts, so I'm sorry about that. To be fair, the list, I'm pretty sure Ultra Beasts aren't actually counted as legends, but it really just depends on how you look at it. I'm pretty sure the classification is different, but then again, I don't know why Savali is included. Anyway, Eternamax, easy S, easy broken. Eternatus, though, is an easy S+. Dragon Poison is a really good typing. It's able to counter fairies with Dragon typing, as well as the fact that it has T-Spikes, which is a very rarity among Ubers. On top of that as well, it has Recovery and Mystical Fire, and obnoxious 130 speed with pressure. Really easy S+ Pokemon. Kubfu's unevolved. The Gigantix Urshifus both get the A tier, as well as the Urshifus. Urshifus are really good, but again, they're mostly folding from, well, actually, I'm going to give Urshifu single S+, specifically, but the Gigantamax gets it A tier, mostly just because of its VGC performance. It's probably, I feel like Rapid's better in VGC, personally, and especially with the Rapid Gmax, it's a really good Gigantamax user, whereas regular single strike Urshifu just folds a little bit in comparison to Rapid, and single Urshifu, at least as a non-Gmax Pokemon, is a really good Uber Pokemon. Well, it's an okay Uber Pokemon, but it was way too good for singles, and it's really good in comparison to draft Pokemon. It's probably borderline pan-worthy, so we'll give it that. Calyrex, again, I'm giving unevolved. I don't care how shit it is, it's borderline evolved. If I'm gonna put Vion there, I can put Calyrex there. Regieleki is a B tier Pokemon. Really shit in singles, but it's pretty good in VGC. Reggie Dragon is also going to go to B tier just because it's a bit more of a middle ground in how good it is in singles as well as how good it is in VGC. Actually, I'm going to give Regieleki A tier, mostly weighing it from draft, but to be fair, it's like top tier VGC, and it's still an OU Pokemon at times, but it's still kind of shit in my opinion. Reggie Dragon, though, it's just a bit inferior in the VGC end, and it's a bit more consistent in the OU end. But to be fair, Regieleki has metas where anytime Rain is popular, to be fair, Regieleki is popular. Reggie Dragon, I feel like it's just shit Pokemon, but to each their own, I guess. Zuru, we have Zuru. This is definitely an B tier Pokemon. Really good typing. To be fair, it's really fluid Pokemon to counter team. However, it's just kind of lackluster in OU. Adam Morris is an easy A tier. Therian is going to be B tier. Therian is literally just it's just under this Pokemon directly. I don't know where the Thundurus went, to be fair. But Thundurus Incarnate, we're gonna put Thundurus Incarnate. I'll Photoshop them on, to be fair. Actually, I probably won't, but Thundurus Incarnate is gonna be an A tier, with Thundurus Therian being B tier. For the same sort of notes that Therian is just a worse version, in my opinion, of this generation. With Incarnate just being really good in VGC, as well as the fact that it's just a really good Pokemon in singles. Quite literally, the notes for Animorphs and Thundurus are the exact same, so we'll count it there. Keldio, we already did these. Okay. So yeah, so I'm kind of annoyed that Thundurus has got cut off because I know I had those in the zip, but it is what it is. Shoutouts, of course, yet again to our channel members being Zeke0, Josh, aka Ultra Player, Mia, Rika Hoshizora, and Randy Chapa. I thank you guys so much. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like below and subscribe for more content just like this. We'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Until then, peace out, guys.